Moin moin and welcome to Ralfs Foto-Bude. Here, some of my readers asked me what should I buy? Should I buy a APS-C DSLR or full-frame DSLR? So that's not very easy to answer, but I can give you some tips and some information about the two different systems and the pros and the cons of the two systems. Yeah, on my internet page I've tested the Nikon D600, that's a full frame camera with a 24 megapixel sensor, and the APS-C camera D7100. That's an APS-C with also 24 megapixel APS-C sensor. So to understand what's the difference between the different sensor sizes and which pros and cons the sensor sizes have, I give you a little idea how this will work. So we have the full frame sensor, that's the outer one, that's 36 to 24 millimeter. That's a result of 864 square millimeter. Then we have the APS-C format, that's the inner square, and there we have 24 by 16 millimeter, that's 284 square millimeters. So, and if you compare these two values, 864 to 384 millimeters, that's about 44% of the full frame sensor. So if you have a full frame sensor with 24 megapixel, the inner part, the APS-C part, is only 10.5 megapixel. So the question, I buy a full frame camera and I make an APS-C crop and I have the same result. No, you don't have the same result. You only have 10.5 megapixel in the APS-C area, and this compared to 24 megapixel of an original APS-C camera, that's quite a difference. So you lose sharpness, you lose details, and so it's not a really good advice if you want high quality to make a crop out of a full frame camera, except the full frame camera has a lot of more megapixels. Then it's a little bit better, but in this case D600 to D7100, it's only 10.5 megapixel in the APS-C area. So the next point is the focal length conversion factor. You count it on the main diagonals. So the main diagonal of the full frame sensor, so that's this one, the main diagonal of the full frame sensors is 43.2 millimeter, and the main diagonal of the APS-C, this part, is 28.8 millimeter. So if you calculate it, it's a conversion factor of 1.5. So what does this mean? This means if you have a full frame camera like the D600 and you have on this camera a lens with 24 millimeter and you want the same picture size and the same picture on an APS-C camera, you need a lens with a focal length of 24 by 1.5, so that's about 17 millimeter. So if you want the same picture on an APS-C camera, you need on an APS-C camera a 7 millimeter lens. So if you're a photographer who take a lot of landscape and architecture and stuff like this, and you go down not only to 24 millimeter but to 17 millimeter on a full frame, it's very hard to get a lens for APS-C with the same quality, because if you are going to have a 17 millimeter lens on the full frame camera, you need an 11 millimeter lens on a APS-C camera, and 11 millimeters the quality either you pay a lot of money to get a real good 11mm lens, or you have like the curves in the picture. When you have straight lines, they get curved. You have in the corners, you have a little bit of shade. The corners get unsharpened. So it's quite difficult to get wide angle lens for APS-C with lower than, I think, 18mm may be fine, but going down to 11mm, I think the optical quality isn't very good. So first decision, if you are a landscape photographer, architecture, and you take a lot of wide angle pictures and you want to get the most and the best quality for wide angle pictures, the full frame camera is the choice for you. So there's no way to get an APS-C, because in the APS-C you won't have this wide angle, this perfect wide angle in high quality. There's no way. You have to buy a full frame camera with good lenses, with good wide angle lenses, 17mm, 16mm or stuff like that, and it will get really good results. So let's go to the other part of the end. So that's the telefocus lenses. If you have a telefocus on the APS-C like this one, this is a nice zoom lens, by the way, and you have 200mm, you have to have the same on a, if you want to have the same on a full frame camera, you have to have a 300mm lens. So in a 300mm lens is quite a little bit more expensive than a 200mm lens. If you go more up, like on 400mm, you need for a full frame camera a 600mm lens. So that's not only the costs who play a role, but it's the size and the weight of the lens. A 600mm lens is much bigger and much more heavier than a 400mm lens. So if you're a photographer who takes a lot of pictures in the telephoto range, like sports, like wild animals and stuff like that, so you use focal length from 200mm and up, then the APS-C is much more better for you, because you have smaller lenses with much more millimeter. The lenses are mostly, not always, but mostly a little bit cheaper than the full frame lenses with a big focal length. So that's the next point. If you are going to take sports, wild animals and stuff like that, the APS-C sensor for you is the better choice and the cheaper choice as the full frame. Talking about the picture quality all over between APS-C and the full frame, there are really minimal differences between the sharpness and between picture quality. The high ISO area from the D600 is a little bit better than the high ISO of the D7100. So there's the bigger sensor is a little bit better in the high ISO area. But I mean, it's not like a real big difference. It's visible up from like 6400 ISO. Then you might see a little bit difference between the APS-C and the full frame sensor. But overall, the picture quality of both cameras is really excellent, and it's really excellent picture quality. So the picture quality shouldn't be argument to buy a full frame or APS-C. The argument is the lenses and which you favorite more for the wide angle or more for the telephoto. Talking about the next point, that's the depth of field. Some say, oh, the depth of field, you have to buy a full frame to get the smallest depths of field you can reach. Yeah, it's okay. If you want to have the real smallest depths of field, you have to buy a full frame. But let's talk about the the focal length conversion factor. You have here the focal length conversion factor is 1.5, and exactly the same you have for the aperture. So if you are working with the full frame camera and you want to work with a small depth of field, and you work with a aperture of like 3.0, you get exactly the same image with the same small depth of field on a APS-C camera if you use the aperture of 2.0. Yeah, that's the focal length conversion factor is exactly the same for the aperture, 1.5. So if you have a D600 and use the aperture of 4.5, sorry, you have to use a 3.0 on the D7100. So it's the same factor, 1.5. So you see, if you work in a normal range of aperture like 3, 3.5, 4.5 like this, that's absolutely okay to work also with the APS-C. Only if you go down to apertures like 2.0, 1.8, 1.4, then it gets critical, because there you have no choice, you have to get a full frame camera. Because if you have an aperture of 1.4, talking about the factor of 1.5, then you have an aperture of 0.9 on an APS-C camera. So that's not possible, or really too expensive to buy a lens for this thing. So if you're taking pictures with the normal depth of field, and you take pictures in a normal depth of field range, it's not a difference between the full frame and the APS-C if you have in mind the factor, the conversion factor, and you work one step down on your aperture, you get the same results. You have the same results with the depth of field, and you will get real nice pictures with a small depth of field. Also with an APS-C camera, you don't need to buy a full frame camera. So on the other hand, if you take macro photography or you take macros, you need a long depth of field, usually, not always, but there are some scenes where you want to have a very long depth of field, because if you take pictures of flowers, you want to have the whole flower from the top till the end. You want it sharp, so you need apertures of 22 or maybe 32. In this case, the APS-C is better, because you have the APS-C, and if you have an aperture of 22 and you get the whole thing sharp from the top to the bottom, on a full frame camera you need 22 with a factor 1.5, you need 33 aperture, and if you go up to 27 or almost 32, it gets worse. So if you want to work with a long depth of field in the macro, the APS-C is the better choice, because you get a little bit more depth of field with the same aperture like with the full frame camera. Yeah, so this is the comparison between the sensors, between the focal lengths. You see, on the one thing you should keep in mind, you see on this lens it says DX, so the DX is the APS-C format of Nikon, and if you buy a camera with APS-C, you can buy DX lenses. But if you buy a full frame camera, you have to buy lenses which fits the full frame sensor. You can change the lenses, so you can use a DX lens on a full frame camera. I'll show you how this will work. That's only possible with Nikon. Canon doesn't work it, because they have a different connection, so you can't put APS-C lenses on a full frame camera. but a Nikon, for Nikon it's possible. So if you put the APS-C lens on a full-frame camera and you have a look through the live view, yes, you will see on the live view that there is a circle outside of the picture, and this circle shows you that the APS-C lens doesn't fit for the full-frame sensor. You can change the settings of the D600. There's just let me see. There is in the custom settings we have, I think it's in shooting display. Oh no, sorry, I know where it is. It's here in image area. So here in the image area, if you go to the image area, you can show the image area and it can change to the DX format. And if you have changed to the DX format, then you start again the live view, you will see now you have the small area, the APS-C area, and you have no circles with dark points on the edges of the picture, but you have the small area. You see I'm a little bit smaller in this picture. If you change back to the full frame area, you will see there's much more to see from me. So let's go back to the live view. Here you see it's much more for me, but you have the circles. So you can use the DX lens on a full frame camera, but it doesn't make sense because you have the small area, you only have the 10.5 megapixel area. So it doesn't make sense to use a DX lens on a full frame camera. Then you can buy a APS-C camera and you get much more better picture quality than on a full frame with the APS-C crop. Yeah, so these are the differences between the focal length, between the sensor, and between the different lenses, and the thing, what do you have to buy if you have a certain topic on your photographic interests. The other things like the work to work with the camera, the buttons and the dials and the menus and everything else, they are almost the same, so there are no differences, so there's no point to get an APS-C or a full-frame camera. The differences are very minor, so there are only 1 or 2 points which are different, but the most things are the same. One point is the frame rate. The frame rate of an APS-C camera mostly is a little bit faster. So in this case we have on the 7100 we have a frame rate of 6 pictures per second, and on the D700 we have a frame rate of 5.5 pictures per second. So it's a little difference, but it's not very big. So and there are some other differences. The D7000 has only a 2-way level meter. The 600 has a 3D level meter. So there are some minor differences, but that's special on these two cameras. So if you compare it to Canon, from a full frame to APS-C on Canon, there might be other differences. So you should check it very careful which fits your needs better. So if you need a very short exposure time, the D7100 is a little bit better because to put a lens on it, because the 600, the shortest shutter speed is a 1/4000th second, and the shortest shutter speed on the 7100 is a 8,000th of second. So that's one difference. So if you want to have absolutely the shortest shutter speed, the 7100 is your choice. So these are some points you have to check before you buy. So what you need, what do you need? Do you need a 3D level meter? Do you need I don't know what? So you have to read the stuff very carefully. One other thing, if you take videos, the D7100 has a stereo microphone and the 600 only has a mono microphone. So this is a difference. But it depends on the model. It depends on the model and it depends on the brand. So Canon has other features in the full frame or in the APS-C cameras. So you have to check it very careful before you decide to buy an APS-C or a full frame camera. I give you only the hints and the things which is for the lens and for the size of the frame and what is better for which focal length and which is better for which topic of photography. So you see, it's not easy to answer the question, what should I buy, full frame or APS-C? There are a lot of things to obey, there are a lot of things you should keep in mind and you should check before you buy a camera. And for sure, it's the cost, and it's one topic. Good full frame lenses mostly are more expensive than the APS-C lenses with the same quality. So keep in mind you have to buy much more expensive stuff or lenses if you go to the full frame sensor. The size of the camera is a little bit bigger, but that doesn't matter. I mean, it's like 100 gram and some millimeters bigger, so that doesn't matter. Yeah, so these are the main differences and the main things you should obey if you buy one of these two systems. I hope my video helped you a little bit and give you a little bit of idea how the difference is and what the most important points are for you to decide between these two systems, full frame or APS-C. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed my video. In the description of the videos are the links to the Flickr account. There you can compare the picture quality, there you can compare the macro pictures, and you can compare lots of pictures where you can see the depth of field or the difference between the depth of field of a full frame or an APS-C camera. I hope you enjoyed it. Come back again. We'll see much more videos in the next weeks. There are some new cameras which come in the Foto-Bude. So yeah, till now I say bye bye and moin moin.